Good morning, I'm Diane Smith, and welcome to Capitol Report Morning Update for Tuesday, May 31st. Thanks for joining us. Here's the latest from the state capitol this morning, and yes, it is Tuesday. Governor Malloy has released his plan to fill the $400 million gap in the next two-year state budget. The balance after reaching an agreement with state employee union leaders to get $1.6 of the $2 billion in union concessions written into the budget. $320 million of it will come from the rainy day fund. The governor promised no new tax increases, and there are none. The plan was released Friday evening after Governor Malloy reached agreement with legislative leaders in the House and the Senate. Stay tuned. We're going to get all the inside on that from Connecticut Mirror reporter Keith Phaneuf. But first, Friday was a busy day in the House and the Senate. The House debated a compromise health reform bill, HB 6308, House Speaker Donovan's health care pooling bill, which blends parts of the Sustanet bill. A strike-all amendment establishes the Connecticut Health Care Partnership, which opens the state employee health care plan and other plans designed by the state to nonprofits and non-state public employees. It also creates the Sustanet Health Care Cabinet to continue working on establishing the Sustanet health plan to be implemented in the future. The amended bill passed the House by a vote of 88 to 48 and was sent to the Senate for action. The Senate, meanwhile, spent Friday debating an amendment to the criminal justice implementer out of the House, dealing with so-called risk reduction credits for certain prison inmates to earn early release. House Minority Leader Larry Cafaro had raised concerns about language in the bill regarding who's eligible for the program following its passage in the House. Now here's a taste of the debate from the Senate.
There were some questions about what offenses and what crimes the offenders of which would be able to receive and be eligible for risk reduction earned credits. And part of this amendment addresses that to make clear that certain offenses for which parole is not available to an inmate, those offenses would not be eligible for risk reduction earned credits. To go on, the amendment also provides that for about 64 sentences or 64 offenses for which mandatory minimum sentences apply, risk reduction earned credits would not be available to reduce or lessen the amount of the period of mandatory minimum of the sentence imposed.
In the states where this policy has actually worked, there has got to be buy-in from both political parties. And it has to be done in a fashion where the public feels safe and secure. You cannot ram this policy through and have it apply to folks that we heretofore have determined should serve 85% of their time because their underlying crimes are violent by nature. That changes the discussion fundamentally. And that's what we're doing here. And the carve-out this amendment puts forward does not change that. It carves out only those individuals convicted of crimes to which they never would have been given a parole hearing.
I rise to support this amendment, and I rise to do it not because I'm an attorney, because I'm not, but I guess I'm a person who believes in redemption. I don't know, it's core to the religious beliefs that I have, but I also believe in experience, and I also believe that you really need to know what you're talking about when you make statements. For example, the Commissioner of Corrections already has the ability to release folks early. So the Commissioner already has that ability. It's not a program, so to say, let's not give it to him, he's already got it. So we do it with probation and parole. It's already a system, it's already done. So to say what we sentence is something that we should do and only that is not the way it currently happens. That's not the way the system works. So one, the Commissioner already has that authority. not for a good time credit, but that authority after they've served their minimum mandatory, which is basically what this amendment is saying. So it really isn't changing much of what he can already do or she can already do.
I don't care if every other state in the country does it. I don't give a darn whether New England does it. We should not allow violent criminals to get out of jail early, period. The policy before us says, oh, we want prisoners to be good. And Senator Looney said this doesn't just require them to be good, it requires them to be good and enter into programs. Really? We have to provide an incentive for someone who's committed rape to be good? Here's what we should do. Right now, they're only required to serve 85% of their sentence. We should say if you're not good, you're going to serve 100%. Not let them out early. Of course they should be good. It's like my kids coming up to me and say, hey, Dad, we did what we're supposed to do. Now do we get something special? No. You're supposed to do that. Well, if you're in prison, you're supposed to be good and follow the guidelines and do what you're supposed to do. You're in prison. And you're in prison for committing a violent crime against a person, a family, and society.
The policy, Madam President, is that we know that unless someone is sentenced to life in prison without the chance of parole, that they are going to spend the rest of their lives in jail. We also know that at some point they are coming back into the community. And it's up to us to do the best we can to make sure they don't go out and reoffend and commit another crime. Unfortunately, in the state of Connecticut, the recidivism rate is very high.
The bill was debated for more than 7 hours. The First Amendment, offered by the Democrats, passed. 13 Republican amendments failed. The amended bill finally passed the Senate by a vote of 21-14. It must go back to the House now for reconsideration because the Senate amended it. Joining me now is Leo Arnone. He is the Commissioner of the Department of Correction, and he will be in charge of implementing this risk reduction program. Commissioner, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank
Very
you.
much appreciated.
Thank you for having me.
Commissioner, I should say that you have been associated with the Department of Correction for quite a long time and have really seen this from a lot of different angles.
Yes, I actually worked for the department for 22 years and actually 37 with the state in general.
Including working with judicial and working with DCF, so I think you have a pretty rounded approach.
Yes.
One reporter who wrote about this called it release for good behavior. Not really.
Not at all. A good behavior is expected. If you don't have good behavior, this will affect it, but that's because we'll take anything you earn away. So this is really gets to the heart of the business that we do. So we know for a fact that if we allow someone, let's use 10 years. Someone has a 10-year sentence. So if we allow someone to go 10 years and count ceiling tiles, we know for a fact, this is science, that they have a 66% chance of returning. The recidivism rate is somewhere around 66% for people who have nothing going for them, who didn't get involved in programs, who didn't get involved in education. And another 66% issue is the amount of people that come to us without a high school diploma.
Right.
I mean, it's huge. Illiteracy is terrible. So then we also know that if we send someone out with a GED, we send someone out with a job skill, and we send someone out while under supervision of, let's say, parole, we know that recidivism rate drops from anywhere between 35 to 45%. That's quite a difference in the amount of time or the recidivism rate in itself. That's public safety. The less people commit crime, the less they come back to prison, the safer we all are. That's really what this is all about. So what we're saying on the average is if someone that's serving that same 10-year sentence decides to sit around and do nothing, he'll do 10%. We'll give him a $75 check and drop him off under a bridge someplace. If he gets involved in programs, if he gets involved in supervision, what we end up with is lower recidivism, and maybe he'll serve 9 years instead of 10. That's really what we're talking about. We're not talking about a wholesale release program we're going to open up the back gate and be kicking people out. Most of the reduction in our population that we've seen over the last 2 years has come from these very programs that are being done at the front of the system. In the judicial branch, in court support services, they have actually acted to reduce recidivism and reduce the amount of people coming in. Just as an example, we released 32,000 people last year. A normal release, that's about average, a little bit higher than normal, but not much. But we only took in 31,000 people. That means less people are being arrested. Crime is down in general. We're getting less people anyway. So there's a normal contraction going on in any event. This really will allow us in the Department of Correction to do those same things the same things that are happening up front in the judicial branch and at the beginning of the system. We want to start using the same tools at the end of the system, and it's one of the most conservative in the nation.
When you talk about those programs, what would they consist of, and how does a person earn the credits? The biggest is education. So we really want 66% of the people coming in don't have a high school diploma. We want to get them a GED. That's probably one of our most important programs moving forward. Also, 75% of the people have a drug or alcohol problem that come to us. So we want to have a good substance abuse programming. We also want violence reduction programming. And so you put all of those together in a package and ensure that they're just not programs. Anybody can offer programs. What we're interested in doing is offering evidence-based programs that have a scientific background that have been proven to work. One of the things that people said was, who's going to administer this? Is this your decision? Does it have anything to do with the parole board, or will there be kind of a separate committee set up to do this and say, okay, he or she satisfied all the requirements, and therefore they get this many credits?
We will actually have a grid, if you will, that especially on the part for discipline. If somebody decides to not follow the rules and regulations, we'll take any time they have away. Other things like specific programs will automatically allow them, if they're enrolled in, say, GED programming, high school, as long as they're successful in those programs and moving forward, they'll automatically get time. That time will move forward unless there's a discipline issue. But we estimate that this really will be about 10% of a person's sentence. It's not a huge piece.
Senator Kissel, who is the senator who represents you and who has 6 prisons in his district, basically said, although he spoke very highly of you, he said, let's face it, you may not be the commissioner forever. So his question was, does the commissioner know better than the judges who've actually handed down the sentences?
Well, we hear this a lot. You know, this all goes to this notion of truth in sentencing, and gee, we thought he had 10 years. And well, this is truth in sentencing as well. There's a formula. The formula is 5 days a month while you're in programs. There's nothing untruthful about the fact that there's a formula that allows someone to take a little bit of time off the back of their sentence. I like to, when some people talk about this being some wild program, I like to point to Texas. Texas is absolutely the most conservative state as far as corrections goes in the nation. They give 10 days a month off of sentences for nothing. They don't even require programming. So really, when you look at what we're doing on a national scale, we are very conservative. We're taking this very slow, one step at a time. The last thing we want to do is make people feel that we're putting anybody at risk.
Is there enough money to offer the programs? CTN runs parole board hearings, and I'll often hear a prisoner say, well, I wanted to get in the GED program, but there wasn't any space. Or I wanted to take the fathering program, but there wasn't any room for me.
Right. That has been a problem for years, actually. What we did was, at any given time, we might have 300 or 400 inmates that could be released, already approved to release. All they're waiting for is a program